I at the stage. Okay, so we're here. Oh, okay. Yeah, this should be no. Go ahead. I mean, this is just so. What I do is this: I have StreamYard and I have Veed. Veed is the one that I'm going to take and I make clips from. StreamYard is the one that people can kind of see. It's kind of the raw back. You know, some of the things. It's called StreamYard, StreamYard. Oh yeah, so it's going to stream to different platforms now. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pull up. See, watch live, protect the peace, second season. Oh. So it's on my YouTube right now. Okay. So that's coming up. Okay. So this one I'm going to start. And welcome back to Protect the P. I'm your host, Dion Webster Cox, and I'm so excited to have you for another powerful conversation. This is season 2. So I'm taping this, okay, but you're going to be my first guest for season 2. Okay, I'm ready. This is season 2, and we're continuing our journey of constant growth through diet, exercise, learning, fasting, meditation, and all of the tools that we use to protect our peace, our purpose, and our progress. I like that. All right, isn't that nice?
Peace, purpose, and progress.
And see, peace, protect the peace. Today, I have a very special guest joining me. He's a voice that challenges perspectives, a host who dives deep into real conversations, none other than Mark Colston. But you may know him from Real Talk with Tula Kabone or Politics or Parlor Tricks. Right. You decide. Right. Where he and co-host Justin Burnett, because Marvin Burnett.
Yeah, absolutely. His dad was.
But no, that was Burnett. Marvin Burnett was his dad, and I know I was brother counsel, and where they tackle everything from current events to deeper issues shaping our world. Facts. Right? Facts. So Tula, you want me to call you Mark or Tula or Mr. Colson? Tula. Tula brings a raw and honest approach to every discussion, and today he's bringing that same energy to protect the P.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Facts. We're going to explore mindset, discipline, and the power of open conversation. Because protecting the P isn't just about what we do, it's about how we think. Yes. So get ready for a thought-provoking discussion. And Tula, Kabone,
I'm ready.
Welcome to the show.
I appreciate
Welcome,
it.
Okay? And there you are. Let's get you in.
Thank you so much.
See, this is what happens when you don't have a this is what happens, but guess what's happening? We're publishing. All right,
I appreciate it.
We're going forward. We don't stop.
That's
we don't
right.
stop.
Absolutely
so
not.
You were here on StreamYard, but here we go. But yeah, so welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you for being on this platform. Ms. Cox is just absolutely, you are a true trailblazer for humanity first. Well, I would say humanity and for Black culture and Black women in particular. We appreciate you and the things that you have achieved. And you have been a part of my motivation to continue to move forth and become the best version of me I can become.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that. I'm reading a book right now, and the book that I'm reading or listening to is Master Key by Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. Now, prior to that, I was reading Master Key, and it's an Audible book. It was Master Key by David Arnell. Great book, 28 hours. And I went through it 3 times. And then from there, I went to this 2-hour Audible book for Napoleon Hill, Master Key. And you want to talk about this insightful to the point where I think I'm going to buy about 10 copies of this book. And when it hits me, I'm going to have it in my office. And when it hits me, I'm going to give these books, I might give them away to a person here and a person there. Absolutely. So I think that's what I'm going, I know that's what I'm going to do. Absolutely. But welcome to season 2. I'm excited to have you on. And I'll tell you why. Because I remember when we first met, we met through Nicole Sadi. Situation going on with your mom. We got that handled. And then throughout, you've reached out to me. And I said, okay. And we handled whatever situation was. We handled it. And then the last time you reached out to me, not the last time, because the last time was about a mediation, but the last time you reached out to me was about when I was representing a man by the name of Corey Harris. And you heard somebody talk about me on YouTube. And you said, I'm not having this about, you're not going to talk about Miss Cox like this. You said, Miss Cox, can you come on my show? Absolutely. What did you say? You said no.
Right. And it was the brother who do Indisputable. He was on TYT, the Young Turks. And when I seen the information, I knew it wasn't true. right up to that point, I gave him a little more credibility than what I should have. I'm gonna say this a little more. So when I seen it, I said, no, let me call Miss Cox. We want to set the record straight,
Right.
you know, because he misrepresented your character.
Oh yeah, he did.
You know, he tried to make it seem as if
I know
she didn't call, she didn't, but it wasn't true, and I knew this from having personal dealings with her. So anytime that I'm friends with you and somebody disparage your character or say something negative about you, I'm gonna defend you, whether you're there or not. That's what real people do. So I appreciate you coming on, and I don't even watch him no more.
You don't?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I remember seeing him. I was at a restaurant. I think I had a taste for barbecue, and one of my partners, she knew about this barbecue place. I don't know, it was out in Novi somewhere. And we go, and I just happened to, because it was in the midst of everything happening, and I was going on YouTube, and it came up on my timeline, and I heard what he had to say, and I said, okay, well, they're talking about me, because my name's going to be mentioned in rooms that I won't even know. He posted it out, and I saw that, so it was right on time that you called me to say, can you come on the show and let's talk about this? So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just think that, unfortunately, in our community, we say false things about each other without verifying. And what bothered me more than anything is when you told me he never even called you.
Right.
So how do you, like, if I do a story, I'm gonna kind of like get both sides of the story. Right. Even on the radio, I don't just say things without talking to people. Ms. Cox, it bothered me that this man could make such a blunt story, and to him it was like painted you like you was a buffoon. And come on, man, you just, to me, you can't do that. You gotta have a little integrity. Just have a little more integrity when you pushing these stories out, because our people is influenced by what they hear and see. Period.
Well,
so that bothered me.
Well, that's his platform. So if that's how he felt, that's how he felt. I have no problem with that. I'm not here to. You wanted to talk about it. We talked about it. We discussed it. All I know is that I'm going to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to stop. I won't stop. I have a mission, and I'm going to continue with my mission, and I'm going to continue.
Facts.
Period. Facts. That's all I can say. And since then, we started, because I think that was all around June. Then I started the podcast and started, things have just been growing and growing and growing and growing. And I haven't stopped, and I won't stop. That I won't do.
Absolutely.
So again, I appreciate you wanting to hear about it. But I'll tell you something. I could care less. I really could care less, because the New York Times, that wasn't the New York Times, but anyways, the Washington Post reached out to me. A lot of and they may call them what, legacy news, reached out to me. People Magazine reached out to me to get a statement. And even some of your smaller media outlets reached out to me to discuss this, which is what you do in professional journalism. So his platform may just be for entertainment purposes only. So we have to think about what it is that, what is their platform and what is their message. And to me, his platform, I don't even know the man's name, again, is for entertainment purposes only.
But the way he,
and I'm gonna leave it at that.
If I may just add just a little bit salt in the pot, it is. But the way he presents himself as if he's a culture warrior for African Americans, so it can be deceptive. Now, if it's for entertainment purpose only, fine. But when I heard your story, I believed somewhat that he was a culture warrior. But when I heard your story,
you knew that it was for entertainment.
You're right. You playing games,
right? It's for entertainment purposes only.
So, yeah, right. So I just, like I told you, I used to play his videos, make reference to him, because I play video. I don't even watch it. No, absolutely. Now, I can't deal with falsehood. We don't need that. That's COINTELPRO type stuff. We don't need that. Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. I agree with you. I appreciate you. What's your P?
So my P is, I got a few of them. So let me start here. Because I talk politics. Well, let me say, when I feel the African American culture in general, and let me be clear. And I think there's a difference between African American and being black, right? Because people who come from other countries over here, that's black, don't necessarily understand African Americans and our experience in this country. Thus, they have a different perception on how we act and how we feel about racism,
Okay.
right? So they embrace a whole different concept of America than we do. So I feel like African American culture, our ancestors who was kidnapped and brought over here, aren't really respected, and it's something that they try to dummy down or don't want to talk about, or somehow even those who come over here tend to shy away from us as a people, our suffrage, right? They want to talk about the fame but not the pain. That
Okay.
bothers me, and I think that we have to be one that stand on all 10, like our Jewish brothers and sisters do. Now, I always say this with respect. When you talk to them about the Holocaust, they're gonna say never again. When we start talking about slavery, they tell us we victim, we acting like victims, or that happened a long time ago. I don't like that, Ms. Cox.
Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
like
I
that.
understand.
And I think that we need to really horn in on that and pay homage to our sense as much as we can. And I don't think we should be shut down and told that we can't talk about that, particularly what they done dubbed critical race theory.
Okay.
And I done took that word back and called it critical race truth,
Okay.
right? And I feel like that's a problem. That's a problem with me. It disturbs me,
Okay.
to the max when we can't have those particular conversations.
All right. Well, let's have them. Let's have the conversation. So here it is. So what's your first issue?
My first issue is that I feel that
So what was the P?
the P was that we aren't being allowed, or that our history isn't really being embraced and been allowing us to really celebrate it, or talk about it in a way that could be beneficial in American society in general, right? When black children go to school, we don't learn about, say, George Washington Carver, Carter G. Woodson, the brother who created the defibrillator, or the sister who created the security system with her husband in 1968, Michelle Mitchell, who's really the first black woman to run for president. They skipped over her and went to Shirley Chisholm, called Charlene Mitchell, ran for president in the Communist Party in 1968.
Okay.
Facts.
All right.
So we kind of been like brainwashed and scattered all around. The first woman, first person who ever didn't refuse to give up her seat was a 15-year-old girl before Rosa Parks.
Okay.
But the NAACP, with respect, I say this, decided not to use her because she was a pregnant teen, but she's the first one. So I kind of fought that. My P is that. Like, we have to be able to be living our own truth and not be ashamed about it. So
Right.
it disturbs me when we kind of like are not allowed, and some of our people is ashamed to live in our truth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's you disturb my peace with that.
Oh, so protect your peace. Okay. So I see my sister is calling, and I don't know if she knows. It would have popped up that I'm on Facebook. So if she's calling here, it's got to be something important because she can see that. Hold on. Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Do you know I'm taping?
Huh?
Do you know I'm taping?
No, sorry.
Okay. Bye. Okay. Either I'm thinking because I see one person is watching, so either I'm taping and she knows it, and something it may because she has my father. She has my sister, bless her heart. She has my oh, that's you. Okay, she has my father, who she's taking care of, my sister, who used to live with me last year, who now lives with her son, who is going off to Oakland University. She has her 3-year-old son and her 11-year-old daughter and her husband, 2 dogs, 10, 15 chickens. She has a lot, and she does a lot. And she's a fabulous mom. She is also, she has her own practice. She's a podiatrist. She's been practicing for over, I guess, almost 25, 30, almost 25 years. She's been practicing longer than I've been an attorney. So when she's calling me, when I told her, she asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm taping a podcast. Okay, so here we are. We're back. And again, this is what happens behind the scenes. So that's why they get to see it. This will all be taped out, cut out. All right, so you said protect your peace. Now, this is what I like. And this is how I relate it to what you said. Here it is. We talk about, you don't know this, but I am Christian. I was baptized Baptist, and then I got baptized again Pentecostal, apostolic Pentecostal, and now I'm more non-denominational. I don't go to church anywhere, and I'm okay, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not going to church but I pray twice a day, every day. I journal, I do things, so that's what I do. Now, here it is. I look at some of the history. When I'm talking about history, I'm going way back. I'm going back to Egypt, right?
Let's go. I'm all in.
So I go back. I go to Egypt. Now I'm hearing about how Pharaoh. I'm hearing about the Jews. I'm hearing about the, how the baby, mama put the baby in the basket in the Nile. And I get to Egypt. And I look and I say, where did this happen? Now I want to see locations. I want to see what is. I want to try to take that perspective and figure out what's going on. When I went over to Istanbul, and I was at Hagia Sophia, which is now. So I think Justine had it. We're talking about the 547 BC. I think BC. Yeah. Okay, this building's still there. When you see these doors, it's amazing. And I'm looking at all this and what they talk about. So when I see things, I'm at the Topai Palace, and they have something that purports to be Moses' staff. Right? Moses, who let the people go, who parted the Red Sea, his staff. I'm looking at these artifacts that they purport to be. And now I'm trying to paint a picture. Now, what I've done is I've heard the history. My thing is, how do I take that information, what I know, and what I've heard and been taught, and how do I make it better for me? How do I benefit it for me? Well, because we know it's happened, right? Right. We don't want to forget about it because it's there. Right. How do I benefit me?
I would say that you would take that information and use it for a motivational purpose, to know that you can be better than what most African Americans, this is my opinion, the whole slave trade process was to diminish the motivation of African Americans to accept our subservient role as if God ordained for us to be here, because then they begin to spiritually justify it by saying we are the children of Abraham, right? And preachers will preach this. Well, we're gonna be in slavery for that. To me, no, that ain't true.
Right.
Let's eliminate that.
Right.
So when I hear people like yourself or the information you have, I take a hold of that and I say I come from a rich history of Black people in Africa, because the first Christians were the Coptic Christians, Coptic, from Ethiopia. This is a fact.
Okay.
The first Jews were the Philosopher Jews. Where were they from? They were from Ethiopia. This is a fact. They were both Black.
Right.
So when you go and you see stuff like that, the staff of Moses, then you go to, that's like you say, oh, it's a big old diamond river right there in Southfield by 696. I done taught this for years. You get a chance to come to 696. You say, man, where's the big diamond river at? You begin to question the whole history of what you have been taught and why. And that's what I dig. So I would just tell people, like you, Ms. Costa, what you said. You take that and you teach people. You know, hey, man, I done been there. I done been in the Nile River. You know, I don't see where she put the baby in the basket and it floated down the water. Where they do that at? And are they talking about that on the continent of Egypt? Or is it something we just
continent of Africa?
Well, I'm sorry, the continent of Africa. Yeah, because that be clear. Right, that's another forest.
They're listening. They're listening.
Right, that's another forest to make us think that Egypt, it's right on the continent.
Africa.
It's Africa. It's Africa. And that's another thing I said, oh, man. But on the continent of Africa, where's that at? And when you watch the movies they did with Moses, they don't even let you know that Egypt is in Africa.
No. That's because those productions they took their artistic liberty, and that just didn't come into the writing. I don't know if necessarily if you're trying to get the story out, do you say is the story truly about what happened with Moses, what happened with Joseph, what happened with Jesus? Is it about the story, and you say these are the Bethlehem, you say it's Egypt, you say it was here, you say it was there. Do you say it was in all the United States? You know what I'm saying? Or are you just focused on that locale?
I don't know. I think they focus on the locale because it benefits them and it support the concept of racism being dominated, that Moses was a white man, which I never believe that. With respect, I say that.
I don't know if any of them are really white over there. I mean, you figure that area is all subsaharan. So it's not. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I don't see. I mean, I think they can be some lighter and some darker, but I don't necessarily see them being. They're not like the Icelanders or the Finland, or I don't see them being white like that at all.
But Miss Cox, if you look at most people who watch that movie, right, that's black. We don't think in terms of black face, black people, black history in spiritual aspect. We believe what we see, like, oh, they was white. You know what I'm saying?
Do we necessarily? Okay, so I can see if do we necessarily believe it? And maybe as a child, if you see it, but what if? Because I mean, I can remember my parents talking, and we talked about Jesus, and they're like, look how they described him. He had woolly hair, he had this, he had that. So it was not in my family, at least, it wasn't a discussion that he was white.
Well,
that wasn't it.
I can tell you a majority, unfortunately, black families who have been spiritualized in Christianity, particularly in the South, don't know. They felt they had that discussion. Mm-hmm. And when you go to church, they got a white Jesus, white this, white that.
And you know what? I remember an episode of Good Times where they were talking about, I think, Esther Rowley, what was her name? That was our actress name. She had white Jesus, and we're going to have white. She's like, no, white Jesus is going to stay on the wall. It was some episode about they were discussing that. So I understand what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right. So
we didn't, like I said, that was not our reality. So that's not something that was instilled. That's not a discussion we had in the house. Now, how do you feel about, I know you talked about the slavery. One thing about it that came up, how do you feel about the, because, really, slavery goes on today, right?
Okay, in
terms of like human trafficking.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, so there's a whole cult of slaves, right?
True, I believe that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's still going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that needs to be stopped. And then when you figure out, let's go back in time. When you go back in time, you've got a lot of. I mean, Genghis Khan. Have you read that book, The Making of the Modern World? Oh man, read Genghis Khan, The Making of the Modern World. He went around and just incite. If you didn't go with him, listen. I guess he enslaved everybody. Okay.
Oh, wow.
He is the reason merchants have the credibility and the influence, and really on that scale, he put a merchant over an educator.
Oh wow!
If you were a merchant, you were a higher class than even an educator.
Oh wow!
So that's why you can have stores. When you read the book and you go back and see, like, that's why you have stores like Tiffany and the designer stores, just stores. Merchants were placed. He did that. His entire empire did that. But he would go around and he would take other people, other tribes, other nationalities, and he would take them.
Oh wow!
He would take them.
Yeah.
All right, take them. Mm. So, and make them slaves. Mm. They either did what he wanted or they didn't, and then they would start to fight for his cause. Right? Mm. That's what would happen. So, and then you figure, so slavery has been around for a long time. People get just different. Hey, I want this land. I want what you got. I'm taking it. I mean, that's how a lot of mixing happened, right? Because of slavery. I mean, that's what happened here in the States.
Absolutely.
With US, there's a lot of mulattoes. That's what they would call them.
So that's interesting you said that, because you led right into the segue. Let's have a conversation. Let's hide it up. Mm-hmm. So whenever people say to me, founding fathers, right? 12 out of 13 presidents, 12 out of 13 founding fathers owned slaves. George Washington being one. George Washington inherited slaves at age 11 when his father died. He started with 10. When he passed away, he had 300. Okay. Right? He married to his wife, Martha. Mm-hmm. She bought 80 slaves with him. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, right? They say he had a relationship with God. So it is, when I hear this stuff, right? James Madison owned slaves, right? And you say to me, and I'm laughing sarcastically with seriousness, when you say to me, the founding fathers, our Constitution, I embrace that concept. But were they serious when they wrote it? Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have those some people who are not African American, and this is not a broad brush, that embrace that concept even to this day, and they practice that concept that African Americans really not supposed to be a part. Now they might not say it, right? The term DEI, that's woke, and those type of terminologies are really an insult to. They take it and make it an insult, when really to us it's an embracement. You know what I mean? So when I hear that type of stuff, it reminds me of George Washington type mentality, Thomas Jefferson type mentality, James Madison type mentality, of those who are in power, or those who are in a position of education who promote that kind of concept.
So now that so the past is the past, right?
Facts.
Right?
I agree with you.
Past is the past. So now that we know that, we don't want that to ever happen again, right?
Okay.
We don't want that to happen again.
Okay.
I think there's a new type of slavery going on out here. I think that, and part of our human trafficking. I think that Epstein and having those young girls going to that island, I think that was a form of slavery.
That
okay.
was.
It was. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and they weren't black. I didn't see no little
So,
black
so,
kids.
so let me ask that question. That's interesting you say that.
And that was in the 21st century.
And you see who all surrounded him, and they all knew. So let's reimagine the picture. That was Tyrone in the hood with a lot of people. They would have went and crushed Tyrone. Tyrone wouldn't even made it.
Let's think about it. What are they saying about Diddy? Sean Puffy Combs.
But still, they
saying the same type of thing.
But he was doing the bidding for who? Other people that accepted his behavior because he financially benefited them. I don't listen. Anybody who do that is bold. But I'm saying, to me, have the same type of justice as you will for Tyrone the pimp, as you will for Epstein the pimp. Because it all boils down to destroying the human soul.
That's right.
Like punishing a person who justifiably did not know it. Diddy, same way. They knew. I didn't know he was, because I didn't know. I don't study all that tabloid garbage. But when I found out, I'm like, well, y'all should have said. Like, I'm not gonna hang out with somebody who do that. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm really gonna check you, and if you get to that level, then I'll deal with you. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know how all them people embraced him. And I'm saying that in particular, African American, we know what it's like to be in bondage. I'm talking about the brothers who surround themselves with Diddy, people, and really didn't speak out about it, right? Yeah. To the point that we know what it's like being with black people. We know what it's like to suffer, the struggle, to come from the mud. So whenever we see somebody else, regardless of race, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, we should embrace that pain and try to somehow relieve it from that particular person, or fight against the people who promotes that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this now. I am not for anybody doing anything to get kids, so I don't give a damn if that's included in that whole DEI that they can be pedophiles. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I don't agree with that, and I will stand on that. Do not mess with the children. Adults are adults. If you're an adult and that's what you choose to do, fine. And I get it. Sometimes we do. I mean, I got things that I did 20 years ago, 30 years ago that I'm sitting back like, oh.
But do you think? Well, Ms. Cox, let me ask this. And this is one of the things Republicans. I mean, but they ignore Epstein, right? They ignore
Epstein ended up dead.
Is he?
Yeah, he died he died in jail.
That's what they say.
Well, that's what they say. Yeah.
Right. Let me say it like that. That's what they say. But anyway, that's my opinion. But I agree with what you're saying. And what the Republicans, let me rephrase that, because I believe Democratic Party have a racist animus towards African Americans too, right? I'm gonna say that unequivocally. But you cannot take a word and equate that with something nasty and say that affects everybody. Like you were saying, I agree with you that if DEI or not, that mess with children is just bold, absent DEI. But what those on the political right, some of them have been able to do, is take the word DEI and equate that with everything negative. And when you say, hey, we want to release the Epstein papers, oh, we don't know about that, because it was too many people involved with that was powerful. That's what I got an issue with.
I thought they did release the Epstein. I thought they did release the list. I mean, we saw President Trump was on the list. We saw that Robert Kennedy, he admitted to being on the list. Oprah was on the list. There's a lot of people were on that list.
I didn't per se see the list. Pam Bundy released the list when she became the Attorney General, which I feel was the right thing to do. But trust and believe, if that would have been a list released under Tyrone or Pookie in the Hood, everybody on that list would have been called into question.
But how do you know they haven't? How do you know they're not?
Facts. I don't know. But I'm just saying the two-tier standard of justice that applies, right? And they would have put it out there that that person was being questioned. It would have been leaks where we asked this person, this is what they said.
Well, so a lot of times with an investigation, it's supposed to be confidential until they reveal what the facts are. So they could be questioning people and just ask them not to. I mean, I don't necessarily want everybody to know what is being said. I don't think that's for the public to know.
That's fair.
There's some certain things that you just don't need to know right now,
right.
because you might jump to conclusions and assume that assume something. You put your own opinion to it, right? So let's just wait and see. Certainly, at the end of the day, you can make your opinion. You can say, all right. Once you hear what narrative they want to put out, and you can either say you can accept it, reject it. You can go that route with it. But certain things should not just be out. I don't think the American public. I don't think the public period needs to know everything all at once, because it could tarnish and it could jeopardize getting to the truth. And that's all we want to do. We want to get to the truth of it.
I think now this is interesting, because I'm going to tell you the first sex trafficking was with black women doing slavery and black men, right? And again, my P, we tend to ignore that. When I hear people say,
what's the P? What's the second piece?
The second P is that black women and black men who was savagely raped and exploited during slavery is not really being acknowledged in America, right? We don't really put that on the platform of that it was despicable, that was horrible, where the black women had babies for the purpose of slavery, and the child became the property of the slave owner. Soon as it came out the womb of the black women,
right,
that black man was forced to have sex with black women and labeled a stud. And the more babies he could have, the more he was looked on and respected. How that's a problem with me. That disturbs my peace.
Okay, your peace.
My peace, absolutely.
Okay, so then how do you check? Okay, so that's something. It disturbs your peace to the point of what? That you are able to function? I mean, how does it disturb?
So it disturbed my peace in the point of when I hear history, like the Me Too movement, which I truly support, right? But the Me Too movement started during slavery, right?
Okay.
Why don't you include those black women who was forcefully raped to have babies for the sole purpose of having more bodies for a slave owner to have production and property, right? Because black women, when they had babies back then, that wasn't their child. The baby automatically became the property of the slave owner, right? And if the slave owner wanted to punish the black woman, he sold her child. The black man, that wasn't his wife. That was a slave owner's property. So the slave owner came in and had his way with the black woman. That's a problem. And it's a problem that we have not acknowledged. Black people are the byproduct of that. That's why we got different shades of black people. Right?
You got different shades. Well, hold on.
I'm sorry.
This
is my opinion.
No. I'm not discounting your opinion.
Right.
I'm going to say you got different shades of all kind of people.
But
you got different white people. They say, oh, they darker, or they, you know what I'm saying? But they still, you got Italians that are, you got a different shades of black people.
I agree with that, but we talking about the history of America.
Okay.
And the forced interracial relationships that was particularly done to black women, use them as concubine or sexual exploitation, right? And black men. And a lot of people don't know this about black men who should be included in what I call a separate Me Too movement, maybe for men, that black men was raped during slavery. It was called buck breaking, where they would take the man who was the strongest in the community and they would flog him butt naked, pull his pants down, and they would penetrate this man in front of everybody. Mm-hmm. They had farms where they had created black men for homosexuality for the pleasure of white men who wanted to be engaged in homosexual activity. They had sex farms for black women, particularly farms that was used to produce children. That bothers me, Ms. Cox. When you start talking history to me, right? And you, like, this is Women's Month. I did a whole thing last week on my radio show on black women. Okay. I particularly brought up black women who went through the sex trade, how they was played out of pocket during slavery. And my thing is, let's go to the root cause of that. You cannot, to me, have Women's Month without talking about the suffrage of African American women who, during slavery, was punished for just being a woman.
Okay. So so what's your solution? We know it. You
So
tell us
I
how
give
it
you
happened.
solution.
Yeah. What's the solution?
The solution is for us to start including that part of history in our discussions of women's rights, the Me Too movement, women in general. When we talk of the sex trade, let's stop acting like it really started with Epstein or Diddy, or however we want to put it.
No.
No, and I'm saying some people do. You know, that's the no. No, that ain't that one of the worst things. That is horrible. But one of the worst things that ever happened was 200 years of that debauchery happening to black women in America. That there's nobody in the world that's going to tell me that they can be enslaved for 200 years and their women can be right there with. Black women couldn't vote. But first, black people that was slavery didn't have a right to defend themselves. They had no right to testify in court against white people. They didn't have a right to defend themselves against white people. They were literally considered property.
Right.
So we have to go back in, solution, and educate properly on what happened to black women and pay homage to them and apologize for it. At the very least, apologize for it. At the very least.
So
general.
who specifically is going to apologize?
I think that anybody, let's our school system who promote these books, when they start talking about the Me Too movement, when they begin to educate about women's suffrage, whenever you do that, then you have to reach back and talk about the black women who was raped at that particular time during slavery. Don't start me in the women's suffrage in the beginning of 1913 or 1900s when Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth now were the beginning of the women's suffrage, right? Black people started this.
I thought Harriet Tubman was freeing slaves.
Well, she was, but they were saying that Sojourner Truth spoke on behalf of women's suffrage.
Okay.
She did that. Harriet Tubman
was way before.
Wait, but I'm saying right. But when we look at what they call the feminist movement, which is real prominent in the 70s, they don't reach back to them. We are like so we ignore it. Like, okay, but we was doing that back then. That's a problem. That's a problem, Ms. Cox. It's like me, I know you're a prominent attorney. Every once in a while I refer to you on the show. Hey, okay. Ms. Cox, you fired.
Right.
And I know this.
Right. So I think that your platform that you have, you're doing exactly what you say that you want done. You are bringing out the history that does not get talked about. Facts. And you are doing that. Facts. So I think you're doing a real service. Your service is saying, let's not forget. Let's not forget this is where it started. Facts. And you're bringing that out to the forefront, because what it does is it allows someone to know that, hey, there's a lot more people that you even know that made it possible for you to even be where you are right now. Absolutely. And that for you, thank you, because you're bringing knowledge that a lot of people don't know, or you don't even think about. So that's a very good thing. That's a very good thing. So I think you're using your creativity and your power, your superpower, because I think we all have superpowers. I like that. What's it? Right. Like and you're using it to say, hey, this is what happened. Let's not forget this. Absolutely. It's almost a Doctor Who episode, because okay, so my background is very, very varied and diverse. And I can remember a Doctor Who episode. It was one of the newer ones, not too new, but newer, maybe about 15, 20 years ago. And she said, don't forget. And I think that's you. Don't forget about Absolutely. These people. Don't forget about these people. Right. Don't forget about these people. Absolutely. Yes, we are here. No, this is not, even though there's still slavery, and I stand by it, that's human trafficking, sex trafficking is absolutely slavery. Fact. I stand on that. I don't like it whatsoever. And guess what? There are plenty of pookies that are in federal prison right now for doing that, because I've seen the American Greed episode and the other, some other corruption, where they talked about certain people who were in, because there were some women who, it's not just men who are these pimps, Pookie the pimp. There were women who were, hold on for a minute. Yes. You also have Mama D, who was on Love and Hip Hop, bragging about how she was a pimp, which I thought was just absolutely despicable. Because what you're doing is that you're saying that you were pretty much a slave master. You're a slave master.
They got a book called, it's a book I had read. I can't recall it right now. But the book was sharing how when black people, whenever a person is being in bondage and they're so-called free, they take upon the concept or the mentality of those who enslaved them, right? And as you look at, and I'm just saying particularly African Americans, if you look at a lot of our imperfections in our personalities, we, like what you said, for instance, Mama D bragging about being a pimp, that's a slave owner. How do you even find pride
I think
in
it's
that?
a criminal. Is
Well,
what I
no,
think it is.
it's all criminal. I agree with
Yeah,
you, Ms.
it's a
Cox,
criminal.
but the psychology of it, how do you think that's something to brag about? How do you not understand that that's an uncool?
Well, it's the same it's the same way when a woman says that she brags about you know, right, it's there are certain things that people say that you wonder the psychology of, like, why do you think that's something to brag about?
Fact.
Why do you think that is something
Fact.
that is you're supposed to be
Fact.
proud about?
Fact.
It is absolutely,
Absolutely.
it's not, right?
Fact.
It
Fact.
really isn't. So her saying that, I don't know if it was for TV. I don't know if that's what it was
But
for.
still, even that. But even
But
that.
to even put that out there,
Right,
I don't know.
right. I would have been like, don't do that. You sound stupid.
That
And
sounds
sometimes we
stupid.
have to surround ourselves with people that's not afraid to be truthful with us when we sound stupid. No, that's dumb. You can't do that. If you do that, there's a consequence.
Well,
and if you do that, I'm cutting you off.
Well, I think there are people out there who told her that, because when it was, I'm sure when it was aired, so that's the nice thing about these platforms, you get direct feedback, and I'm sure there were people who responded and said, "Wait a minute, that she's admitting to criminality."
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, that's human trafficking. That's human trafficking.
That to me, it's like, okay, let's really talk about human trafficking. And so I know I had friends, people I meet, because I'm feeding the homeless, and I've known people who unfortunately have succumbed to drugs, and it bothers me. I embrace them, I love on them, and I say, God love you, and Jesus is gonna bless you. You keep moving, right? And to help people, encourage them to stop using drugs. Literally, this is what I've done. Recently, it was a black girl, as you said, Madam D, in a different way, had a friend of mine, that a girl, and tried to legitimately pimp her out. She's
I had somebody try to pimp me out, and I was not on drugs. This person was a friend, I felt was a so-called friend, and she liked older men, and she liked them, so she would hang out at the golf courses. And so I met her. I forget how I met her. I was 26 or so, and I might have met her. They had the DoubleTree downtown at the Millender Center. I might have met her there. I might have been there reading a book, whatever I was doing there. So she and I talked. We became, became associates, became friends. And she had this one man who liked her. I forget what I don't know, it might have been Big Papa, whatever his name was. And he was going on this trip. He was going on some golf trip. Now, this wasn't when we first met, so let's just say we've been friends for about 3 or 4 months or something. And so then she says to me, she's going on this trip with him, and he has a friend. And she's like, well, I think you'll like his friend. I said, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to his friend and see what's going on with the friend. And I talked to the friend, and then friend's like, yeah, where you going? I said, well, I'll go if I have my own room. He's like, oh, okay. I said, great. Yeah, I'll go if I have my own room. Next thing I know, maybe the next day I get a call from her, and she says, what are you talking about? You need your own room. I said, I don't know that man. What are you talking about?
Facts.
Why would I be staying with somebody I don't even know? I know what he's going to expect. Right. What are you talking about? No, I'm not going to do that. I said, what did you tell him? I told him you were like me, but faster. Oh, well, you told him wrong.
Right.
So I didn't get invited to that party. Right. I was off the list. I was off the guest list. But then here's somebody who people try to pimp you out. Now, what do I say to her? One thing I say to her is I have nothing else to say to you. Right. I have nothing else to say to you. You're not the type of person I would hang out because that's not going to do anybody like that.
I think some people, it's hard sometimes for us to tell people we don't want to. It ain't hard for me. I'll cut somebody off in a minute, and I think that a lot of people, we become what they call people pleasers. Peer pressured into being friends with certain people, particularly on the status they have or the respectability they have in the community, or in a political career, or some type of position, or financially. Some people have been brainwashed to submit to that and not tell them, hey, because everybody got their boundaries, but you have to stick to them.
Right.
You have to stick, like you have boundaries. I got boundaries. Same thing that you said. I already said, no, I'm out of here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But can I bring up one more topic?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That's what
Okay,
we're
so
talking about.
I got something else that bothers the P. I gotta say this.
Okay, what's your other P?
So when we
I'm gonna say this out here. Oh, what's your P?
so
What are your thoughts?
so I really did a lot of research on. I got to say the R word. And R
What's
word
the
is
R word?
reparations. I have to really have.
Okay.
So when I began to do research, I learned that one of our so-called leaders, President of the United States, who freed the slaves, gave reparation to slave owners. April 16, 1862.
April 16th,
1862.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln gave slave owners, he signed a bill that gave them reparations for every slave they freed and became friendly with the Union soldiers.
So that was his economic plan for
slave owners, for slave owners.
Okay.
Right? $300 back then is $9,000 today.
Okay.
William Lloyd Garrison, who was a writer of the abolitionist newspaper that helped slaves fight against slavery, he questioned that statement. He said, why would you give money to slave owners and not the people who were enslaved? Right? 1988, President Reagan signed a bill giving Japanese Americans who was locked up during in the 1940s, they round up after Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. He gave them reparations. We have given Native Americans reparations. We have given, and rightfully so, all of them deserve it. Let me United States support our Jewish brothers and sisters getting reparations for Germany. But when it comes to black people, they give us excuses. And they say this, that happened a long time ago. So my comeback is, well, so was the Native American relatives. They ain't alive. And you still get them money. Mm-hmm. Why can't we get reparations in September the 4th, 2024? In California, the Black Caucus stopped and did not vote on giving California reparations for slaves. This is a fact. They could have done that. A white Republican brought up the vote. They didn't want to do it. Now, I talked to somebody, particularly Leo Brazil, who's one of the founders of the Black Panthers. He told me, because I was befuddled by it. I was like, why wouldn't they do that? He said, well, they didn't want to interfere with Kamala Harris being elected in October and had California pass reparations. She's from that state. They felt like it would have interfered with her getting elected.
She wasn't getting elected. She wasn't getting elected.
That's another topic.
But she wasn't getting elected, so that was just all bullshit.
Right. So he said, well, they're going to bring it back up January 225. Guess what? They ain't bringing it up. So they was protecting Newsom. And I told him this. I said, man, you protecting Newsom because Newsom don't want to be the first white governor to have to dispense reparations to African Americans in America because that is a really, really contentious issue that they don't want to talk about. I have a problem with that.
So what are you going to do about it?
My thing is to encourage African Americans to make sure when they're talking to their political people, because Detroit got a bill pending right now, or they got something to city council about giving African Americans reparations. That anybody we talk to politically, we hold their feet to the fire, and we demand that they put on a ballot or they support reparations. And if they cannot politically support reparations, then we should not put them in office. I stand on that.
So what are you going to do? Okay, so you're talking about for the city of Detroit.
I'm talking about in general. In general, even in Washington,
D.C. You're talking about every city in the United States, every city in the state of Michigan should put this on their ballot? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that. Detroit has slave owners. Woodward is named after slave owners. Joseph Compo is named after slave owners. Belle Isle is named after slave owners. I go on and on. That's right. So let's not be clear that Michigan is not exempt from slavery. Let's go even further. The so-called White House was built by slaves.
Okay.
So when we go visit that, just know that was carved by the hands of my ancestors.
Okay.
Right? So
mine too.
Right. I'm sorry.
You ain't the only black person, African American in here.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to say this.
Right.
I don't like including people in my because I don't want them politically tied to what saying.
Oh, okay.
That's why I do
All
that.
right.
So it's not offensive at all.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you
Thank
know what I'm saying? Yeah, because I be saying stuff and people like, you know. So
No,
but
you're speaking. You know, the whole purpose of this platform is for a person to come on. First of all, I want to hear what your P is and how do you protect your P. And you are telling me and telling everyone else what your P is. It's really about your piece. And your piece is to come and to tell the story, to give the history that you've uncovered, you've unearthed, and even some of the current events as to what's happening
absolutely.
and how this has affected you and how it's affected other people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now, I don't think this has stopped you from going around living your regular day-to-day life. I don't see where you're depressed. I don't see where you're focused on it to the point where you can't function on anything else. You can't. You got up, you got dressed today. You're functioning, so you're good. You know? So that's the whole purpose of it. These are your thoughts and your opinions. Now, some of the things, this is where we differ, and I'll just tell you, yes, I know about the history, and I always say, and even that you've told me and I had not known about it, I still say that I have to keep moving forward.
I agree with you.
Okay,
100%.
so
Absolutely.
so I appreciate hearing about it. I absolutely appreciate hearing about it, and with that information, it'll go back here, back up. Back here somewhere, and I will continue to get up every day. I will continue to do, and thank God, thank Jesus for the gifts that He's given me
Absolutely.
to be able to do the things that I've been able to do.
Absolutely.
And to continue to do it. So that's where I am with it. So I appreciate you telling your story and giving us information. So yeah, it was fire. It was fire.
Well, let me go further. I'm with you, Miss Cox. Sometimes we have to know where we really came from. Like when I hear somebody complaining that could do better, that's African. Like, bro, do you really know your history?
I know. That's why I got my ancestry DNA done, so I know where I come from.
Right.
I do.
How you did that?
Yeah, you gotta do it. You gotta know because it takes a different turn when you find out that you are not 100% anything. That we are so diverse that I've got people. I've got DNA from this part of the world, from this part of the world, from that part of the world. I just came back from Bali. Now I went to Bali and I came back and I'm telling you, while I was there, I saw people who looked like me. I saw people with my actual skin color. And I just love that. I said, oh my God, they look like me. They look like me. So even though this is the first time I've traveled and I got deathly sick. I'm talking about like I was in the bed, could not move. But every time I go on some type of vacation, I've got to give up something. There has to be some type of sacrifice. There has to be some type of sacrifice. I'm just happy nobody died, right? I'm just happy nobody died. So that was my sacrifice. I got sick, but the doctors came in. I got an IV. They gave me all these drips and everything, and I was fine the next day. So I say all that to say that I appreciate what you have to say and continue. So I was talking about my ancestor DNA because it might feel different when you find out, well, hell, I'm 25% Irish.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I'm not gonna be talking about the Irish. I got some England in me. You know what I'm saying?
I'm okay.
I got some Indian in me. I got some Asian in me.
I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to be an exclusive culture vulture. Let me say it that way.
Okay. All right,
let me hit that in. But I just feel like we have to be a motivation and we have to remind our people sometimes where we came from to know we can be better. Like I don't let my history prohibit me to go out and say, if I don't make it, that's the white man's fault. No, it's my fault.
Right.
Because I got to put forth the effort to change it. I'm not finna let racism be a stumbling block to my success. I know it's existing, I know it's out there, but it's how I get around it and do what I need to do. So let me be clear. I think sometimes some of our people use history, and I'm saying particularly black people, use history as it becomes their glass ceiling for not succeeding. And I think that's wrong.
Right.
We've proven through our history. Like I tell people, we was dropped off over and they forgot about us.
Who? The people who sold the people, the kings that sold the people over here. Those people.
So 200%. 200%.
Those people forgot. Yeah, because the transaction
200%.
was done. They were selling these people. 200%. They sold them over, and yeah.
We don't want to talk about. Listen though.
Why don't we want to talk about that?
I'll talk about
it. Okay, because it came from somewhere.
I love talking about it. I think, and when I tell people, we cannot forget that Africa sold us to slavery, right? Let's not start at the white people who began what we were subjected to as a result of slavery. Let's start with who did what and how they just pushed us out there in the water and say, figure it out. Right? And look where we are now. African Americans are some of the most resilient black people in the world because nobody came to rescue us. We rescued ourselves through whatever we went through, and through the blessings of God, right, we made it. So I think we're some real resilient, and I agree with you. So I think that we have to hang our hat on that success and begin to move forth. We can not continue, Ms. Cox, to make excuses for our downfall. I do not believe in that. I don't embrace that. I don't want us to be a welfare
Well,
state.
what downfall is happening? Tell me what
Meaning,
downfall
like,
you're talking
when we,
about. Because I don't feel like I'm in no downfall.
No. I'm saying culturally. I'm saying, so I'm kind of gluing. So I let me rephrase this one separate. I grew myself into, when I hear black men can't read, I grew myself in it. Well, let's come up with a solution. Why? Okay, if you're saying that black men aren't reading at a proficient rate, on what status are you grading it on? The SAT or the other tests? Right?
Well, who said it, and what black men are they talking about?
They talking about black men in Detroit public school system. There's a statistic out there that black men in Detroit public school system, under over 50% cannot read at a proficient rate.
What were you talking about? The black? Okay, so you're talking about black men. You're talking about black men who were. Hold on. Are you talking about black men who were employed by the Detroit public?
No.
Okay, because they're students. There's not men who are in school. They are still considered children minors. So what black men are they talking about?
So when I say black men, let me be more clear. I don't. So I when I say black men, I'm talking about even black men that's over the age of 14 and 15. So let me rephrase. So let me say children, black men who are in high school, meaning men, black men who are in high school, right, and junior high. They're saying they don't read at a proficient rate.
So whose issue is that? Is that not the parent who did not see? I don't like to blame the school system.
I don't either.
For my child, because as far as I'm concerned, the first teacher is me or the parents. So now, am I going to blame the teacher because my child can't read? Hell no. Because what I did was I made sure my daughter had tutors. I knew I couldn't do it because I didn't have at the time, my mindset, my patience was not there because I didn't want to hurt her for she's just trying. And I had to have her give her tutors. I had to get somebody who had the patience who could work with her. Okay, I had to do that. So, but I'm not going to blame the Detroit public school system if my child can't read. I'm not going to do that because that's just not fair. Because you tell me, you bring them to me for 8 hours, they with you for 16 hours, and what you doing with them? You tell me you haven't sat down there with the child and opened up a book at all. What was your important? You know, when I talked to my daughter, I said, listen, we don't live in a big house. And I said, we could. I said, but I chose to focus on traveling. I chose to focus on you doing this. I didn't go out buying weed. I mean, I did at one point in time, did go buy wine every day, but I've stopped that.
You can let it out.
But the bottom line is that I made choices. And some might say sacrifices, but I'm happy I made those sacrifices because God made it possible for me to be able to support my daughter and continue about a lifestyle that I like. I don't care if anybody else likes my lifestyle. You don't have to like it.
Right.
I like it, and it's comfortable for her to the point where she can. Now, if I had a little boy, I can't imagine myself doing anything different with a little boy. Right. My children are going to read. Now, keep in mind, my mother, God bless her soul, Anaya was 2 and couldn't read. She's like, she can't read. I was like, I'm gonna do it, Mommy. I know she's gonna read. She can't. Oh my God, my mother yelled and screamed at me because my child could not read at 2. Yeah. But that's where we came from. So before the conversation starts with the school system, and I don't care if it's a Detroit public school system, Novi public school system, Southfield, Farmington Hills, I still stand with the parent is the first person. That's the first level of defense. The first teacher are the parents. And if the mama's not there, daddy's not there, then it's the grandmother. Somebody brought this child into this world, and that person who said, I accept, has a responsibility. And if they don't, and they need to take that responsibility seriously. And when they don't take that responsibility seriously, life will not go well for them.
So I agree with you 100%. But when we talk about the marginalized, the poor, and very poor, right? That's not so much of a.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
So I give 5 categories, particularly to the African American community. Let me be more specific. I believe that we have what we call the bourgeoisie, the elite. Let me phrase it that way: the elite, the middle class, the marginalized, the poor, and the very poor. Marginalized meaning that you 1 or 2 paychecks away from 3 paychecks from losing your house, car, and all that. Poor meaning that you 2 checks away or 1 check away from losing your house. Very poor meaning that you don't work at all, right? In the middle class, you're able to survive, you're above state water, and the elite is the very rich of our culture, right? Someone like the talent intent that W. Du Bois was talking about, the talent intent. I've kind of phrased him in that, but not necessarily the practice of talent intent. So when I talk to people who are marginalized and poor and very poor, right? Unfortunately, they can't read. They can't read, but I agree with you. So my thing is, don't blame the school system. Instead of you buying your child $200 in Nikes, buy your child $200 in books. Instead of you let them watch them crazy videos on YouTube, hey, we gonna push YouTube and you can learn how to read and write. You can learn your history. So I'm agreeing with you, and I think that our community have delegated too much responsibility to the school system when the child's fail. No, we got too much technology out here now for a child not to be able to read. You can watch YouTube and watch A, B, C, D, and read. So, in learning how to comprehend or be more progressive or be more focused on educating yourself. Mm-hmm. So, I'm agreeing with you, Ms. Cox. I don't like that. The school system is there for, they're only going to teach us so much. But even a parent who can't read or can't write, what are you doing, as you say, with your time? Are you trying to apply your child? Because you got access to technology out here now that everybody else don't have. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do what you need to do.
That's right.
I agree with you. I just think that we mismanage our time with something that we can never get back. And we mismanage money, which is sometimes something we can never get back. So particularly the marginalized poor and the very poor, we need to invest more money in our children, in our education system, and in our community when it comes to the structure of Black children or people that's in a community that cannot read a so-called proficient rate. We have to take responsibility for that.
Absolutely.
Particularly even the churches. I even said that the churches can set up, go to the church on the weekend. Go to tutor. Why don't you have a tutoring system set up for children on the weekend in these mega churches? People will volunteer to come in and do that. We should be doing that in our community. We want to teach Black history and they're not allowing you to teach it in school. So what? Okay, so we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to teach the history and we tell them to take their history and use that as a motivational tool to become better. Not as a blaming system, but as a motivational system to know that you can be that person who created a security system, or the guy who created the computer chip that was Black so the computer can work. You can be that person.
Right.
And that's how I look at it.
Okay, well that's a beautiful way. It's an absolutely way. There are plenty of resources, and it's seeing things that kind of seeing the invisible. Whereas you say some people may say, "Oh, the church is just for here, or just for this, or just for that." No, you've got that space, and I think if you've been blessed with a certain space, you have the responsibility to use that. And if part of that space can be used to tutor, to have a program, a learning program, it becomes, you have the responsibility because you've been given. When much is given, much is
required. That's absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think that back when we were so-called enslaved or being Jim Crow, we took upon that responsibility. We had more of a, I would say, cohesive program as far as taking responsibility for our community, for the uplift of our people, and particularly children, elderly, and stuff like that. But now it's like, oh, well, they can just go to school. No, that's not. You have to buckle down and go back to the roots that we had at one time. That's right. Blame ourselves for our failures at certain times, right? So, one more piece, Scott.
Okay, we got it here. Let's see if we can't get this P here, because this one is we're still going live. Let's say it. I'll probably just have to have this. May just be our video that I have to send over. But okay, go ahead.
Okay, politics.
Okay, protect the politics. Okay,
protect the politics.
That makes sense.
It
How?
bothers me when protect the politics that we have to learn to disagree, to not agree, but to disagree and still be friendly towards each other. meaning civility, regardless. It bothers me when black people get mad at black people for voting Republican. That bothers me. And we kind of like have this like,
Well, how do you know who voted for? I thought it was all secret.
but because some of our people have no problem with being outspoken about it. Like I've shown videos on my show where you show black Republicans and how they criticize Democrats, and or how Democrats criticize black Republicans, make snarky or nasty names towards them.
Well, people can do that and not even be, it not be a Democrat or a Republican. They
but
still be
but
mean.
the political aspect really divides us. And what I try to tell people, if you look at the speech, the interview that Martin Luther King gave in 1967, when he broke down the mindset of what he called so-called liberal progressives, he said that they got good lip service, but when it comes up to paying the money to help black people get the programs they need, they back out the game, right? And if we look at the so-called Democrats and the so-called white progressives, and then this doesn't apply in a broad brush, but they tend to not really focus on issues that really needs to be addressed in the black community. For one, I told you my P was reparations. If they fought that, it'd be cool. They focus more, and I'm saying this, they focus more on.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No. Please continue.
So they focus more on LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And they focus more on migrants.
Yeah.
Right? So now so Kamala Harris, with respect, you made a comment, and I made this prediction on my show on Politics and Politics You Decide. I said, hey, you don't go talk to marginalized, poor, and very poor black men, because Donald Trump is feeding them what I call, to me, false hope. But false hope is better than no hope. Y'all is ignoring them. You primarily focus on women issues, right? Which is fair. And you're focused on the elite, the middle class, and the elite. You forgot about them. I said you're not going to win the election. More so, I also said you cannot just solely focus on LGBTQ and migrants, right? Because let's be clear, and I wouldn't talk to people in the community. I haven't seen a migrant yet down there that speaks Spanish or come from another country. But I've seen African Americans are the leading homelessness in America. This is a fact. Ms. Cox, by the Democrats are banning African Americans. Let's because one thing we are spiritual people, right? So I don't talk to black people or the Republicans and say, hey man, I'm not down with the LGBTQ stuff. I don't believe that men should be in women's sports, right? And I 200%, I should play sports, right? I know the strength of a man, right? I know how this is, right? So I'm saying this unequivocally. I don't agree with that, and so the Democratic Party kind of under in the summer made you feel ashamed if you said that you were somehow different or you was ostracized and you shouldn't criticize. And one thing I said, Ms. Cox, was this, and I said responsibility. When have you heard the LGBTQ defend black people? Or talk about reparations on our behalf? Or migrants talk, and I say this with respect, talk about reparations on our behalf. Now, what they did was they piggyback off our success. Martin Luther King, first in that, Martin Luther King. But when it comes to really getting in the middle of helping African Americans get our justice as far as reparations or even fighting about voting rights, their voices are silent, Ms. Cox. And the Democratic Party embraced that. So what they did, they pushed black people to the Republicans. Not saying that we all agree with, right? Or that meaning we all, I'm seeing myself as black people. We may not all agree with the Republican agenda, but one thing we did not agree, and we want to vote, we do not embrace that. And I feel like the Democratic Party was trying to shove that to white progressive Democrats. And I'm saying this in particular, and some black progressive so-called elite Democrats, or what they call corporate Democrats, tried to force that down our throat, Ms. Cox, and it did not work.
No, it did not work.
And it backfired. It backfired, Ms. Cox.
It backfired.
It backfired.
It absolutely backfired.
Because we're conservative people, Ms. Cox.
Yeah.
When I go to church, the pastor ain't never said it's okay for that. We black people, we like, nah, that ain't my thing, family. It's cool you doing it over there. But when you take a whole political party, and that Kamala Harris did an interview with respect, I say this. She did an interview with the LGBT person and in I think it was September of 1919 or 2019 or the recent. And when people see that, when she said, well, that was a problem to a lot of African Americans, and I'm saying this from a political aspect, not so much as me. I'm saying, let me kind of say that, but for black people who are really into God, they ain't with that. I done talk to them. They're like, man, I'm straight. Hey, man, I dig. The Democrats have done a lot for us in the past under Lyndon Baines Johnson, which we got the most civil rights activists under Lyndon Baines Johnson, 1960. But man, that right there, fam, I ain't doing that. I can't. Ms. Cox, am I right or wrong? And so I don't want people to think that because my co-host, great guy. His dad was a black. Marvin Barnett was a black Republican, right? But he had his own issues, integrity wise, and I respect that. So I'm tired of my people criticizing black Republicans, right? When you're a Democrat and you don't even believe in that, right? Because you ain't finna invite that to. Let's be clear. If you have a party, are you going? I say this with respect. All respect. You have a family reunion. Are you gonna have an LGBTQ party at your family reunion? Black Democrat? No, you're not, because you don't even. So you have to understand why people are crossing over to the Republican Party as black people, Ms. Cox. That bothers my peace because I don't care if I can sit and be in a room with black Republicans. Because guess what? We still gonna eat collard greens. We still gonna eat neck bone. We still gonna eat cornbread. We still gonna talk about issues that affect our people. But I'm not gonna dislike, and that's one of my shows on politics and politics. You decide. That's one of the things I really harp on. The African Americans, we got to stop doing that. When you see other cultures, they don't hate their comrade or the person that's a human being because they're Republican or independent. We do, because we have been so, I would say, baptized in Democratic Party that you don't think my way, that's the highway, and that's just a brainwashing process to me. So,
well, I'm gonna tell you something, Tula. I'm gonna tell you like this. I just don't get invited to those reindeer games because I did not know. I mean, it's so outside of where I don't. I just that's not my world. It's not my world. I hear about it. I hear everything you're saying, and these are not the discussions that I'm having with any of. Not that I have a lot of people I even talk to. So these are just not the discussions that, especially about the whole. I mean, I guess I don't even discuss the politics. We don't even bring that up, really.
I guess because I got a political show.
You got a political
show.
So
I wanted to be able to really be a voice of African Americans so my platform is geared towards if you elite, middle class, marginalized, poor, and very poor. If you listen to my show, I'm gonna give you a full plate of knowledge.
You're just like there was a man. He died. He was over at there was a church. The church is still there. It's on Outer Drive in Southfield. They built that church about 20 years ago. It looks very nice. And there was a man on Saturdays around 3 o'clock who would teach. He would show the differences between the African kings and the Egyptians. He would show how they pretty much they were the same. Like who they're talking about, they were all black. They were truly black. And he had so much knowledge. And he would take a couple of trips over. He would take a group of people over to Egypt to show them this because he did a lot of research. So I remember going to a couple of his classes to hear what he had to say because again, I'm always going to listen because there could be information that I had no knowledge of that I could get knowledge of, and I appreciate that. Just like I appreciate what you've shared with me today because it's I can't say that everything you've told me I already knew because I did not. I did not. I can't say that I absolutely agree with you on spreading the word that you're spreading. And I think that is, again, that is your superpower. And that's what you've been called to do. I saw that you had a show out there called, you were in Ann Arbor talking about prisoners' rights or people who were just released. I saw that on YouTube because I was trying to find your current shows. And I saw you. So that was like 9 years ago. Absolutely. So you have been in the making for this. This is you. Right. You are doing your calling.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely doing it. And then, and how, and the people the groups that you talk about, they need representation. Absolutely. So that's the same thing here. I don't discriminate as to who I represent. If you've been in an auto accident, absolutely, I got you.
Right.
Okay, you've been something happened with the police. We got to talk about it and see exactly what happened because of something called qualified immunity. So we got to see exactly what happened. But again, I got you. So yes, we're all at a place where we are, and if we are following what is inside of us, what we have been chosen to do, then we're helping others. And I think that's what this is all about, helping others. How can I take the gift that I've been given and share that with others?
And I think that's good you said that. And because I do, me and my sister, you of course, we just did feeding the homeless in February.
Yeah,
She
I know.
wanted to do that for her birthday. And Miss Cox contributed again. And this is one of the blessings of being with somebody like Miss Cox. She's a true pillar of the community. She didn't have to do that. She did it. But I do believe in helping the downtrodden. My mama kind of baptized me that, and my dad, and always helping those who are in need. And for the voiceless, you have to become their voice. I do believe in brothers who have been, or women, or anybody who's been through that type of situation through incarceration to bring them in. I believe in helping people who is homeless. I believe in helping people who's on drugs. And it has nothing to do with race. This just has to do with humanity, right? And I kind of am that person who believes in embracing that. I go down to feed the homeless. When I see they black, white, whatever, I don't care. I don't say, oh, you're this. I feed them. I just give them what I got, and I give them a bottle of cologne. I might give them a little bottle of cologne because everybody want to smell good no matter where you at. Where you still might want to just spray a little bit, make yourself feel good.
That's
right.
right.
So that is, I appreciate it, Ms. Cox. But just know this, I want to put this out there. When I first did my first show, I came to Ms. Cox. Yeah, you didn't know this. And I told you I was going to do a radio show. At that time, I was on the edge about it. I'm like, man, can I really do radio? Miss Cox wrote me my first donation.
It wasn't me.
You wrote she did not hold me up. She said, hey, you know what? Here's a check. I've never forgotten that. And see, and this is what I'm talking about. And I tell people on my show, when you're looking for a hero, look in the mirror. You're that person. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to go searching. And sometimes it's us that become the hero in order to change our own condition or the condition of other people. If you're tired of paper, I tell them in the hood, you tired of the grass being apart, go get a lawnmower.
Yeah.
Stop getting mad at the city. Go pick the paper up. Do cut the grass. They won't shovel the snow at Miss Jones' yard. Pick up a shovel, go shovel the snow. Those people down on the corners homeless. Y'all take them food stamps y'all got. Have Miss Jones cook a big meal. Put them plates together, go feed them people. Be your own activist. Be your own hero. Stop getting mad at other people not doing what you can do for self. That's one thing I will say. That's my solution. And that my mom taught us. That you cannot, if you see an issue, deal with it.
That's right. That's right.
Deal with it.
That's right.
Well, that's it.
Oh, Mike, is that it? Did we do? Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today because this is wonderful. This is my first show of the second season. And this was fire. This was very much fire. Because you did take my mind through places, and it's like, okay. So I thank you for sharing your knowledge that you have.
And I thank you, Ms. Cox, for having this platform. You are a busy person.
Yeah, I am.
And I can say unequivocally, I always advocate for you, whether you know it or not.
I feel it. You
know what I'm saying? I really believe in what she does. Ms. Cox is one of the most realist attorneys that I've ever met. Right? And I've ran across quite a few because I do paralegal work.
That's right.
But Ms. Cox is definitely genuine. When you ask me, because I don't go on everybody's show. Let me be clear about that.
I'm happy to hear it.
Right, I don't. Some people I say, no, I'm straight. Because you don't have a genuine, like my man, I would never go on this show. The one guy that I showed you, brought you on to talk about him.
Yeah.
But so I appreciate you having this platform. We need you to have this platform because we all need to know how to protect the people.
That's right.
So thank you. And
thank
continue. You ever know anybody want to come on my show? You might be in the fire pen. Well, come on now. But no, it'll be productive, man. It is because we always trying to really create positive solutions, Ms. Cox. And as you always say, my co-hosts always say, Marvin Barnett's son, what's the solution?
That's right.
Well, at the end of the day,
what's the solution? How do we go forward with this? Let's move forward with this. So thank you. So you've got politics and parlor tricks.
Politics. Well, I've got a show on Thursday called Politics or Politricks. You decide, meaning if there's trickery in politics.
That's right.
With Justin Barnett and Tula Kabone. Then I have a show every Monday on WHBR 88.1 FM at 5 o'clock called Real Talk with Tula Kabone, which I go more in depth with more culture issues, explaining stuff that we don't know about Black inventors, Black inventions, just stuff that we need to know, as you said, to use as a pogo stick to move forth
That's
in
right.
our life.
That's
Not
right.
as a stumbling block, but as a pogo stick
That's
to
right.
know you can be better than what you think you can be.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Cox, thank you so
Thank you for
much.
taking time out of your day to come here and sit down with me with my first episode for the second season. The season now, this won't actually air. The edited version will air in July. That's when it starts. But I'm
Okay.
I'm lining up my interviews. I'm lining up all my interviews.
Well, I want to play some of your. I had one on that looked at the people. So what I do is I go in and take certain excerpts. So what I'm gonna start doing is playing certain excerpts of your show on my show.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I do that.
Oh,
I
nice.
take Roland Martin. A lot of my show on Monday or Tuesdays get around clips that we take, and we have discussions about them because the everyday person don't have time to sit down and watch or know about the P or
Oh, nice.
even native podcasts with Tiffany Cross and Angela Wright and Gillum. So that's what I do.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm definitely gonna borrow from your.
Oh, please
platform.
do. Please do. Absolutely. No problem. Absolutely. You have my permission to do that. That's why it's out here. This one is going to be on the YouTube. So I don't know if you take it from YouTube.
I do. I take it from YouTube.
Okay, so this will be on YouTube. That it is still going on now on YouTube, and it's on Facebook as well. This one here will be on all the it'll be YouTube, but it'll be the edited episode, and it won't even have as much as this one has, because this one has when you go into this.
So I can go to YouTube and pull this now.
You can pull this right now. You can pull
So
it.
I'll look at. Not only that, I don't like to be put out there. So I'm gonna tell you the kind of person of people, because when you talk to me, you would think